Welcome to Chapter 10 of our Civil War unit, Advantages and Disadvantages. A Summer Picnic. On July 16, 1861, 35,000 Union troops marched out of Washington, D.C., headed for Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the newly formed Confederate States. A Confederate army of 25,000 men was marching to meet them at Manassas Junction. Many civilians followed, reading in the newspapers that the battle would begin shortly. These civilians set up picnic lunches on a hill near Bull Run Creek, where the battle had already started. They assumed that the war was going to be short and the battle was going to be even shorter. They thought that because the North had more men and better resources, they were guaranteed to win. The First Battle of Bull Run/Manassas. The North assumed it would win and take Richmond and restore the Union within weeks, if not days. The Confederates agreed that the war would end shortly, but with a different outcome, making them an independent nation. Early in the morning on July 21, 1861, Brigadier General Irwin McDowell led his troops across Bull Run Creek to meet the Confederate forces under Brigadier General P.G.T. Beauregard. Both men were leading highly inexperienced forces, since most of the veterans from the most recent war, the Mexican-American War, were too old to serve. McDowell hoped to take the Confederates by surprise, attacking their left flank unexpectedly. First Battle of Bull Run/Manassas continued. Since McDowell's men and officers were so inexperienced, the attack was executed slowly and poorly, but the Confederates were still caught off guard and held an early disadvantage. Because of the slowness of the Union troops, Confederate reinforcements under Brigadier General Joseph E. Johnston arrived, giving the Confederates the advantage. During the battle, Confederate Brigadier General Thomas J. Jackson earned his nickname Stonewall for holding the line while reinforcements arrived. Union troops retreated, some even panicked and abandoned the battlefield. Both sides learned that the war was going to be longer than they anticipated. In the end, a total of 847 men died and over 1,300 went missing or were captured. Below is a map of the battle. In blue is the Union, aka the North, and in red is the Confederacy, aka the South. If you look closely, you can see the different generals and brigadier generals that were commanding these groups of men and the direction that they went during the battle. Advantages for the North. The North had initially been self-confident because of the advantages they had over the South. The North had a population twice the size of the South's, 4 times larger if slaves were not counted. Technology also gave the North a large advantage. Thanks to factories, the North could produce significantly more iron, railroad equipment, and guns. They could also produce more clothing, tents, and medical supplies. Furthermore, they had more railroads, allowing them to distribute goods and reinforcements quickly. Advantages for the South. The North's advantages would only be effective in the long term, however. In order to gain an advantage, the South would have to win early and win often. If they consistently won battles, they hoped they could cause the Union to lose heart and give up. The South also had the advantage of fighting a defensive war, meaning that they only had to keep the Union out instead of trying to conquer Union land. Finally, the South had the advantage of West Point. Many of the generals who had trained at the military academy in New York were Southerners and joined the Confederacy at the beginning of the war, giving the South more experience. Robert E. Lee. He lived from 1807 until 1870. He was the son of Revolutionary War officer Henry Lighthorse Harry Lee III. He entered West Point in 1825 and graduated in 1829, immediately entering the U.S. Army after graduation until the beginning of the Civil War. He became a distinguished officer during the Mexican-American War. He commanded troops during the capture of John Brown. While he was opposed to slavery and loved the United States, Lee joined the Confederacy because he loved Virginia more. He first served as a military advisor to Jefferson Davis before being promoted to general. A Brother's War. Civil War is especially tragic because it pits countrymen against each other. While most of the soldiers fought for their respective regions, Northerners with the Union and Southerners with the Confederacy, there were some men who fought for the other side, such as Union Admiral David Farragut of Alabama or Confederate agent Caleb Hughes of Massachusetts. In some instances, houses would be divided, with one family member joining the Union Army and another joining the Confederacy. On rare occasion, family members actually fought in battles, such as Confederate General J.E.B. Stuart and his father-in-law, Union General Philip St. George Cooke. Summary. The first battle of the Civil War proved that the war was going to be long and costly. The North had the overall advantage and could last longer, but the South could still win if it could act quickly. Please make sure you have the summary copied down along with your terms.